Welcome back. In this presentation, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into PERVIEW pillar. That's the first pillar of GrowthOD. One of the things you can do is take the PERVIEW mindfulness quiz. That'll give you kind of a study of what are the key elements of PERVIEW, and you can use it as a pre-test, post-test in your coaching and consulting work. So PERVIEW stands for Processes of Embodied Restoring with Vibrations and Energy Waves. So it's about processes of change and development. It's embodied, right? It's restoring. If you're not familiar with restoring, it means the practice of changing out the story filter you have grown up with and implementing a new and better one for yourself. So if you have a not good enough story filter from your parents or your teachers, whoever it is, and that's drumming in your head and plays out into your adult life, well, it's possible to restory that using PERVIEW. We also use vibrations of the body. We look at energy. We'll see some energy ratings here. Energy you feel. You walk in a room, you feel the energy. You feel energy right now. You either don't feel energy, your shoulders are back, you're smiling, you're feeling energy, you're ready for life. And waves, quantum waves. So it's developed by myself and Dr. Ann Rosile, and is a 7-step method. We'll go through the 7 steps in a minute. But let's just look at the basic definition. Processes embodied, restoring vibrations, internal energy rating, waves of quantum energy collapse, and a positive choice. Ann Rosile and I have developed it over the last 30 years. So we've done a lot of consultations, a lot of coaching, individual and group. And we're the story healers. We find those story filters and we point them out to you, and we gently give you the choice of upscaling into a different story. So it's scientific, it's proven, it's based on techniques that have been around and based on our work with those techniques in over 30 years. In the quiz that you can take online, just go to growthod.org. You'll find it there. It relates to GrowthOD. So GrowthOD is gratitude, rooted organizational wisdom, transformation, healing, right? And it includes the following kinds of things. So it's gratitude for nature, for the silences we have, the little while moments in life we can step into in the here and now. It's rooted processes, awareness of the hidden loops of decisions from our unconscious. It's organizational. We all work in organizations and in families and in communities. So it's a field between people, and that resonance between people, we call them vibrations, the vibrations we feel in our body when we're around another person. We're resonating with joy, we're resonating with fear with some bosses I've worked with, and restoring for wisdom, the courage to rewrite our own story, to create the story we want to have happen. If Abe Lincoln once said, if you want to be able to predict the future, then create it. So we want the story to live. We're going to create that story. We have transformation and energy scale from 1 to 10 we use with coaching and client because we want to know how they're doing each step of the way. It's healing of internal emotions, thoughts, and limiting beliefs. It's a quantum physics vibrations we're looking at, collapsing the wave. You'll get into that in a minute. And embodiment. The truth is in our body. I believe in that our body doesn't lie to us as much as our mind does. And our mind will tell us anything we want to hear, but our body, I do muscle testing, so I say, is it a good session? Yes. Oh, yes. Okay, it's a good session. So simple as that. Being attuned. In the mindfulness quiz, PERVIEW mindfulness quiz, PMQ, you'll find an interesting bit in there about the Old Town, the stage play and the book Old Town. And it's stepping into that everyday life of the little town and getting to know your neighbors, taking a break, kinds of things in the big cities we don't do so much very well sometimes, but we can learn to do it there too. So you may want to know, what is this word ontology? It means being, beingness, right? There in the world, in those activities. And the world of, I have a blacksmith shop, that's a world. I have this home world. I have the video world that I'm in now. I have many worlds on planet Earth that I inhabit, those worlds. But I'm also part of stepping outside, seeing the sunset, the sunrise, seeing the stars at night, breathing in the fresh air in New Mexico when the winds aren't blowing up the dust. That sort of thing is what's called an ontological awareness of the worlds we are in, that we create as human beings, and the earth, Mother Earth, with streams and mountains and skies, that sort of thing. And there was a relationship between the two, right, that we'll talk about now and again. So, what are the 7 steps of PERVIEW? Uh, they are very powerful steps for helping individuals, teams, and organizations create that new future. That's the best way to predict a future, is to create your own. And that's what Abraham Lincoln said. So 7 coaching steps we go through. We go through them in order. Characterize yourself at your best, your organization at your best. So we try to get you immediately to see the difference between characterizing at your best and a problem-saturated account. You're called in as a coach or consultant not because everybody's at their best, but because they got a quagmire of problems, what we call the problem-saturated account. And that can be pretty magnetic to people. They can get stuck in that magnet of the problem-saturated account, in that story filter, we call it. Second step is to externalize the problem, shift the blame from the person or the self to the systemic issues. And we do that by having you come up with a label. So instead of calling it by your name, we separate you from the problem, or your team or your organization from the problem. We might call it the system problem, or the turnover problem, or the people yelling at each other problem, whatever you want to call it. So we give it a name, and that way you can step back and look at the problem with a little bit of distance and a little bit of detachment that's necessary to do this work. Then we sympathize and empathize with the old story, that story filter, that problem saturated account, because it's there for a reason. It does something for you. Let's say you have a procrastination, that's it, Mr. Procrastination. Well, it means you don't have to take on things. You can conserve your energy. You can say no. You can say yes and just not do it. So it has some value. They're not great values, but there's some payoff there. Number 4, that step is called revise. That's where we look at the consequences of the habitual story pattern that you're in, that problem-saturated account that Mr. System account, whatever it is, the Mr. Chaos, whatever you're, Miss Chaos, Mrs. Chaos, whatever you're going to call it. Let's call it Mr. Chaos for this illustration. So we want to see all the consequences of living in chaos, of having a chaos story, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to get into the negative thoughts and emotions, the limiting beliefs, and we go through those so that you get in touch with it as an observer. Then we'll start to strategize in step 5. What are the little wow moments? The little exceptions to being in the problem-saturated account, Mr. Chaos, whatever it is, Mr. Ambiguity, Mr. Procrastination, whatever that is. And we'll say, give me an exception when you weren't doing that. We kind of started and then you, boom, bounced right out of it. I was working with a client yesterday and he mentioned that he was an all-star pitcher and understood the flow of the game and being in there and being in the moment of pitching, and then wasn't worried about all kinds of things. Often we were worried about 3 things. The critical parent in our head, that critical voice says, oh, that's not right. You didn't do it well. It's going to go badly, right? It's also the not good enough parent in your head and that self-talk. So the Mr. Critic, Mr. Not Good Enough. And these kinds of voices need to be dealt with by remembering the times when those voices were not accurate, weren't defining you. That's what's important. So to strategize in step 5 is to find 5 to 7 to 10 of them. You're going to need a bunch of the little wow moments of exceptions to rebalance the story filter that's very strong in your life. Mr. Critic, Mr. Not Good Enough. Maybe it's the inner child that's acting out and taking their bat and ball and base and going home when they were a little kid and didn't get their way. Maybe it's sabotaging in your current life. So those are good kinds of things to look at. Step 6, we rehistoricize and we tell that history. And now I'm going to pause a little bit to let my dog. Little wow moment there, a pause to deal with my animal friends. So to rehistoricize, as you can hear them in the background, they're very excited. Life is always coming into play. When you rehistoricize, tell your past from beginning to now, birth to now, without dropping into those story filters of the problem-saturated accounts, of the not good enough, of the self-sabotage, of whatever it is. Leave it out. Just leave it out. If you catch yourself starting to do it, remember, just start telling the little wow moments as your history. Take those 5, 7, 10 of them and introduce yourself. Hi, I'm David Boje. I'm good at what I do. I once graduated first in my class from a community college, first one in my family tree to go there. Graduated first in my class from Rider University outside Princeton, New Jersey. Wow. Became the top placement in my PhD program. I got a assistant professorship job at UCLA. So those are examples of little wow moments where I'm not dropping into those negative story filters. So the more I do that, I change the habit structure of my storytelling. So rehistoricize is practice in doing that, and publicize the news story is the 7th step. So once I've got a grip on my news story filter, again, like Abe Lincoln, I'm going to create the future I want, create the story I want to have. And I can predict my future because I'm practicing it every day and the outcome is assured. So I'm living out the change publicly in accountability. Now, to do that, publicize, I'm going to have to actually start telling my story to people who have been used to hearing the problem saturated account, PSA. So people don't like you to change, by the way. You know, they like you predictably in an awful state that you were in. They don't want to like, whoa, what's this new person? Why is he or she so positive? What's that all about? We got to stamp that out. So, in step 7 is also publicizing that news story to a support group. That support group, those are the people that can hold you accountable. You say, I want you to hold me accountable. Anytime I drop into my PSA and I'm Mr. Chaos or whatever it is, Mr. Procrastinator, I want you to bring it to my attention in a loving manner so I can get a hold of it and swap it out for that new story. So practicing the new story is the key to restoring your life. And as a coach, as a consultant, we're going to do that. Let me say something else about the purview pillar. We are understanding um, a number of values. So the purview coaching steps involve particular virtue ethics from Aristotle. So the way they're designed is when we characterize, it's prudence. We're being prudent in characterizing ourselves at our best. We're externalizing in truthfulness with kind of a sort of insight to name and give form to the story filter, right? So we can observe it at a distance and start practicing something else. Third step, we sympathize and we appreciate the temper, the heart's soft drum, the protective role of the story filter, because it's there for a reason. 4, we revise through courage. So courage is really important to have the courage to face your story filter. It's a virtue of courage. 5 is to strategize in hope. So hope by recalling little while moments of exception to the old story filter. 6, we rehistoricize with temperance. So we're tempering our story, finding a new balance to begin with. We're retelling our life history as a new story through the little while moment lens. We're telling those little while moments again and again, and then they will attract more little while moments. You'll remember all kinds of times you were really successful. You got those perfect scores in school, or if you procrastinated in school, maybe you were intelligent in some subject and you just didn't do it for whatever reason, but you coached your friends in a topic. I know I did that in calculus when I was in high school. Um, so that gave me hope. And I had temperance in step 6. And 7, I have friendship. Friendship is a virtue. And to rely on your friends to be the people you publicize to and the people who support you, bring in that support group, you know? So I hope this gives you some ideas. I'm going to stop here in the next segment of Purview, and we'll talk about the questions you can use as a coach and consultant in each of the steps. Thank you very much.